Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Tom here. Tom, you're somebody that's built an AI solution that is just a more efficient way to use artificial intelligence, whether you're using it for personal use, enterprise. I mean, you guys are more enterprise focused, but it makes it easier for people to build AI applications, to have them be done in efficient ways from a cost standpoint, from an energy standpoint, and to really pull together a lot of different resources. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we're pretty excited to kind of talk about it and show off what we're building here.
Awesome. So just going back to the beginning, how did your interest in AI and wanting to become, a leader in AI and a builder in that category, how did this passion of yours to be entrepreneurial in this area begin?
I think the most important thing is that with AI, it was like one of those game breaking technologies. You only get those every 20 to 40 years probably, right? Probably the last one was kind of like the dot-com bubble back in the day, and so you always want to be a part of it, but at the same time, you don't want to play off of what everyone else is doing. You want to kind of pave your own way. And we were pretty excited to kind of think of a new way to, solve some of the issues that we saw in our own businesses, primarily around resources and costs and things like that. So we wanted to make it easier for people to kind of contribute. And I think that's always been a big conversation when you have players like OpenAI and Anthropic and things like that. We wanted to allow for people to, with smaller budgets, smaller teams, basically contribute in the same way that these larger companies can.
Mhm. So what was the initial idea here?
So our initial thought behind everything is that, and kind of going back to our background, we used to work in large data aggregation,
Mhm.
and we ran into this issue where essentially we needed a ton of compute to do kind of small tasks, but there was a lot of these tasks. Like we were talking about terabytes of data, and we needed to go through them and tag them and do a bunch of different things with that data. At the time when we came out with that, AI was really new. It was extremely expensive if you wanted to use GPT. I think that was GPT-3 at the time. We didn't really have an option to use anything. So we kind of thought about how we can do this internally. And the best solution that we came up with was essentially leveraging, my computer, other people's computers, data centers that have spare compute all the time. A lot of data centers aren't running 100% utilization all the time. So if we could tap into that compute all over the world, and even if it's for these smaller tasks, the vision's gotten a lot bigger since then because compute's gotten a lot better and a lot more efficient. It would save us a lot of money. It would allow for other people to build applications that they really wanted to build but just didn't have the resources. So there was a lot of inspiration behind kind of coming from our background, really.
Mhm. So, I mean, the idea makes a lot of sense. Like let's make these resources more easier to use, more cost effective, more efficient. But even just making this technology possible doesn't sound so simple. How did you pull that off?
It takes a lot of networking, a lot of back end work to make everything work. And, we're still not 100% there in terms of the technology because primarily a bandwidth. So a lot of data transfer, it's expensive, it's slow. Everyone on the network, we're not working with the same specs all the time, which makes things really difficult. If we were doing this just between data center to data center that has 10 gig connections and ports, we'd be able to do it really quickly and we wouldn't have much issues. But the biggest solve that we had to come up with was a way for moving between, my internet, which is pretty good, and someone that might be over in Asia that might not have as good of internet, and making that all work. So it's definitely been a large haul. It just comes with a lot of back-end experience, and that data aggregation that we did previously was a lot of data moving and data transfer. So we're still figuring it out. I'm not going to say that we're all the way there yet. Any software can only get better, right? You're always improving it. But we're pretty happy with where we are right now. We're running, 20 gig models on a lot of different chips, and we've quantized those models down a little bit to kind of save some space. But it's a hell of a haul to do what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. So, is your background like technical at all in any sense?
To some degree, I ironically enough was an attorney in my past life. Went to law school and wanted to make some money and got into software. We built a software marketplace that was acquired in 2020. I love software. I love working with different teams. We've done a lot of work with whether it's our own software, building for other people, helping people out. I've advised a lot on software. We've kind of got the art down to some degree in terms of virality and driving users to the apps that we build. So not super technical myself. I do understand a lot of code, and I definitely talk pretty highly with our CTO and our developers, but I'm not in the trenches coding, I'll be honest with you.
Well, everyone's got their own roles in these things. That's just how it works.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, the reason we work so well is because we all have that background in building out kind of the virality side of things, but also making things work. So it's a good team. We have really good rapport with everyone. And we worked together for a really long time, which is really important as well.
That's great. It's good to have that trust with your partners.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it work from a consumer standpoint? They want to basically they deploy a model to you, they get a cost to do something like that. Like, how does the system work?
Yeah, so we do what we call hot loading. So
Mhm.
that's kind of the basis of it. So basically, we try to run everything in the GPU. We don't want to load from memory if we don't have to, or load from storage. And so on the consumer side of things, you can go on our website, you can go in our Discord. We have a Discord bot that you are able to interact with. We also have a full enterprise API that's OpenAI compatible. So if you're a developer or you're just a consumer that wants to use any of the models on our network, very quickly go tap in. We have all different ways to tap into it, and you can very quickly access all of those models. On the other side, the provider side of things, essentially what happens is that you can go on our website. We have a download for a Chrome extension, which is a little bit less efficient, but it's a lot easier for onboarding. We realized that pretty early on that we wanted to allow for people to contribute pretty quickly. And that was one of the big inspirations on the Chrome extension is that traditionally there are other products that do similar things to us. They're a little bit more decentralized, I'd say, but they're still allowing for people to basically run a Docker container and then provide compute to the network. We streamlined all of that. So we removed Docker. We built our own version of a runtime that is essentially Docker, but it's our own version of it. It's one-click install, and that's the desktop runtime alongside, like I said, the Chrome extension. So there's two ways to provide right now. The desktop runtime is one, the Chrome extension is the other one. And on the consumer side of things or the enterprise side of things, it's just OpenAI compatible APIs, or alternatively a Discord bot, or basically a ChatGPT clone website. So it allows for you to interact with any of the models.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, are there just so many models at this point that it's kind of hard to keep up with?
We're constantly getting pinged for new models from a lot of our enterprise users. They have different needs. DeepSeek was a big one that everyone wanted DeepSeek. And this is like the last probably 6 months has been like that, where we had like Flux came out. We were running Stable Diffusion prior to that. We wanted to get Flux in there as quickly as possible. Flux is a great model. It's huge. We run Flux Dev. It's a 20 gig model. So that was a little bit of fun trying to make that work. Like I said, we quantize it for some of the providers. And it's definitely a never-ending game of cat and mouse in terms of the different models. And since everything we build is completely custom, we always have to try to make things work on the network, right? So we spend a lot of time kind of modifying the models to work on our network, reducing size, trying to limit the amount of data transfer when possible. So it's a game of cat and mouse for sure.
Mm-hmm. So when you got started, like how many resources did you even have, from that standpoint to handle all this, and how have you kind of handled the scale?
We had almost nothing. So what we had when we started is essentially a limited knowledge of what we wanted to do and a limited understanding of the market. Originally, we actually just wanted to do the provider side. So we said, let's build out a network that allows for people to provide compute to the network. And then on the demand side, we would basically just provide that out to anyone that needed it. More general, right? We pretty quickly realized that it's more of a marketplace model. Like I said, our background's in marketplaces. We've had a couple of them, and one that did really well. And so we wanted to build out that consumer side, which just added a lot more work to my end, to be honest with you. I do all the marketing for it. And driving, marketplaces are funny. You have to drive buyers and sellers, but both of them kind of need to work in tandem, and you kind of got to scale them up, together. And so in terms of the initial resources, we essentially had a little bit of background from our previous company, which was a lot of data transfer. And we had some of our previous backend that we could kind of reuse to some degree. All of the Chrome, we never built a Chrome app before, so that's always fun. Working with Chrome is really interesting. They have some kind of funky rules in terms of approvals and things like that, and what permissions you need for actually installing it. So we learned the hard way on that way. It took us like 3 weeks to get everything up on the Chrome store, making sure everything was safe. The desktop runtime is just a never-ending problem because, like I said, we're just, as opposed to if we just went with enterprise, we just went with data centers, we would be in a really good space. It's just working with all these small consumers is just so difficult because people are all over the world. We have people in like 100 plus countries. We have people that have really low, slow internet, up to really high, fast internet, and every single operating system under the sun. So it's no different than building any type of enterprise software. You just have to constantly be making changes, listening to feedback, and trying to adjust. And it's really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot. I mean, especially with AI, there's just so many new changes in the space. You have to adapt all the time.
Correct.
Not so simple. Yeah. I mean, how do you manage that from like a cost standpoint too? Because like the changes are fast, new technologies coming out, and the hardware side's now changing. I mean, I was at NVIDIA's keynote they did at CES. I mean, you see the rapid developments there. How do you kind of keep up?
Well, that's the best thing for us. So the NVIDIA keynote was, that's always like the juice in our veins every single year. NVIDIA is so fast. They're putting out really great solutions. And for us as a network, they're putting out solutions that are just amazing for us to run models. They usually, like when they present everything, right, they're talking about running models locally. And in a lot of ways, we're essentially doing the same thing, except for it's across the network. So the model runs locally, and then we provide back the result. And so although they're not building solutions directly for us, in a lot of ways, they're basically building them for us, which is amazing. The 5 series chips, they have that little box nowadays. I can't think of it, but that thing's incredible, has a ton of RAM. So yeah, I mean, keeping up it's difficult. We're pretty on top of the ball in terms of where we're going. And I think the most important thing with staying ahead of the curve as best you can is you just kind of have to make educated guesses on where the space is going. And I think that's any business, right? At the end of the day, I think any company I've been in, I'm sure every company you've been a part of, you have to basically make a guess as to where you're going to be in 6 months and a year. AI is really difficult because it moves so fast, and the kind of the speed at which everything is progressing is a lot quicker just because it's newer technology. But we've done pretty well on the educated guesses. One of the core ideas that we had early on was that open source would get really close to parity with closed source, which is not typical of most industries, right? Most times closed source products basically always have a huge jump ahead. But we just saw there seemed to be a lot more demand. I think it's just because of how, I don't know if you want to say dangerous, but how progressive the technology is. It felt like a lot of people had this calling to basically put open source at the forefront here. And now you have Sam Altman talking about it. You have a lot of different people discussing it. And I think we're so far been pretty correct on that. And that allows us to kind of drive our decision making and really, like I said, forecast out where we want to be in 6 to 12 months.
Mm-hmm. Why did you think open source would be similar to private companies and what they do with this space specifically? I mean, it's been pretty unique.
It's amazing, right?
Companies have been willing, especially even like Facebook, Meta, they've been willing to democratize their model. That's just kind of different.
Which is so, I mean, obscure for Zuckerberg and for that team. They've always been, they've been controversial to say the least, right? And I think we just saw the conversation early on. You can look at, open source repos for AI. They get tons of interaction. People love building. And it just seemed like early on that was always a push. And like I said, I mean, once you had Facebook doing it, once you had Google doing it to some degree, it was pretty obvious that the big players were going to push for more of an open source option. And it's honestly really profitable for some of these companies. As long as they can collect their royalties and they have the proper licensing, it's a great option. I mean, it's not going to make ChatGPT numbers or Claude numbers right now, but they're doing well. I think there's a lot of options there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that part of the reason they did it was just the development of like how they think that their models, there'll be a lot of different eyeballs on them and they'll improve a lot more too. And I'm sure that that's kind of the case.
I think if you look at where Llama is right now, I think they've moved really fast and they're building their own version of what they think is going to be the best LLMs. Absolutely. DeepSeek's incredible. I mean, DeepSeek is basically, it's probably right now the best model, if not the second best model. I played with O1 a lot. I played with O3 Mini, I think it is. They're both incredible, but basically now people are realizing that you can do a lot of tweaking on the model and kind of how you run it. So chain of thought's been really interesting. These models are spitting out some really incredible stuff. I mean, GPT-4 versus now versus O1 it's radically different. I used to play with it, but I never really used it for anything. Now I use it to get ideas. We do like business forecasting with it to some degree. It's incredible. I mean, the models are just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how people have been so quick to integrate into their workflow of whatever they do. It's not like they're afraid or anything. It's just we're going to feed it all of our information, even private information, our business, and give us insights into it, and that's okay.
I mean, I probably should be a little bit more careful about some of the stuff I feed it, just because, especially with ChatGPT, obviously with OpenAI being basically private, you got to be a little bit careful. But yeah, I mean, it, as an attorney, someone that hates writing, I love putting stuff into it and seeing what it comes up with. It gives me a lot of ideas. It's basically like having, I kind of use it as someone that I can talk to all the time and kind of kick ideas to it and then get ideas from it. So kind of just spitballing back and forth, no different you do with like kind of a business strategy meeting.
Mm-hmm. Probably a better way.
Yeah, except for it's a lot smarter than the people I talk to.
Yeah. So what's kind of next for you guys now? I mean, is it just, making people build and deploy AI applications smoother, less hurdles, more consumer facing, quicker to do, lower costs? Is it just trying to keep going in that direction?
Yeah, I think from some degree, we're at the more of the boring part of the business. I think we built out the core. Right now, we're still finalizing some things, but it's more about getting the right models and really moving the pipeline from someone requesting a model to getting on the network quicker, which, it takes a little bit of time, but we're getting better at that. But biggest thing for us right now is onboarding. We really want to get more enterprise clients. We're working with some really cool teams out in San Fran now. Pretty large Web 2 consumer platforms. So a lot of generative content, and there's a lot of them. I mean, we could never possibly dream to touch half of them. There's a lot of people building in the App Store, things like that. So really trying to make our mission to get to those teams, offer them kind of the cheaper solutions that we provide. And then, maintenance, stability, kind of efficiency, all of those things in the short term. In the longer term, one of the bigger things that we're really looking at, and I think we're super excited about this just because of our background, but we're looking at different options kind of along the same line as where we're on the compute side of things. We have basically this economy that allows for people to kind of compete on prices and things like that. We're looking at doing more of a free market for data as well alongside it. Data is a huge industry. Not only AI, but also in the like insurance space. There's a lot of different companies that use data. It's like a $320 billion a year company or business. So we want to allow for people that are training models, people that are requiring data for other use cases, like some of the teams we worked with previously, to basically access what I would call a database of different resources from different providers. So we're thinking about that in a bunch of different ways, but that's kind of the longer play for us, is to have both the compute side and the data side of things kind of flushed out. And when you think about an AI model, that's the two, that's the heart and the brain of it. So want to basically provide those to our users and our consumers and enterprise.
Mm-hmm. And do you have like a short-term roadmap right now, like with some immediate goals you're just trying to hit?
Yeah, so the short term right now is primarily getting to a place where we're really happy with the usage. And that, like I said, that's primarily on the enterprise side. So model wise, we're at like 3 right now. We probably want to get up to about 15 to 20. I think that's a good span of all the different models, whether it's Llama or Gemini. There's a billion different ones, right? Flux, there's a couple different versions of Flux that we'd like to run. So short term, definitely getting up to that 20 model kind of limit. I think that'll be a good spot for us. And then on the enterprise, like I said, we actually right now we're running a surplus of compute. I would like to drive that surplus down to a point where we're really happy with how much usage is going on the network. So, it's like I said, it's a marketplace. That's the funniest thing is like, if you don't have enough compute and you have too many users, it causes issues. Right now we have too much compute, which is the better issue to have, but we still have to drive users. We still have to get more people on the platform. And, for enterprise teams we're talking to, we can drive and save them like 40 to 50% of their costs per month if they're using RunPod or different platforms like that. So it's a good pitch. It's pretty straightforward to them. But it's just a lot of work to get done, Enterprise is slow.
Yeah. I mean, how are you going and getting these customers now? Is it just through marketing or like conferences?
It's a mix of marketing. It's a mix of PR outreach. We do some cold emailing once in a while. We have some background in that from our previous company. It's a lot of referrals as well. Honestly, we've done the best with meeting people. There's a lot of good people in the space. There's a lot of people that know a friend or know another guy who builds an AI platform, and everyone's looking to reduce costs. I'll be honest with you. GPUs are just not cheap. They've gotten a lot cheaper, but they're still not cheap. And so we appreciate anyone that kind of refers us there. And like I said, if we can solve an issue for you, we're happy to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tom, that was all the questions that I had. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think it's great that you've tried to make a solution here that's more affordable for people to, have access to this incredible technology, and to, make AI more accessible, especially to small and mid-sized businesses. I think that's very important. You hear a lot about these innovations, and some of these small and mid-sized businesses just are unable to even enter into that category. So I'm definitely rooting for you guys and excited to see what's next, and appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Like I said, the more accessible we make AI, the better off for everyone. And if we can do a very small part in this large picture and kind of improve, teams like ourselves, small teams that want to build great things and reduce their costs and just kind of build the best thing that they possibly can. We want people to dream bigger. I've always been a big believer in kind of build the best thing you can. So, I want to enable teams to do that. And it's kind of a fulfilling mission to be able to talk to teams and save them some cash. So,
100%. Totally aligned.